Hello everyone, so I have an exciting project for today. It is an API project that uses the Agify API to predict the age of a name that you type inside the input. So for example, if I type in my name, then it's going to get some data and it says that I'm likely 59 years old and this name has been searched for 183,000 times. So you can keep on searching for other names. You can search for, what's another name? Anthony. You can search for that. You can search for Michael, and you can search for basically I think any name that is available out there, and you're going to get some results. So it's a very simple project. It's a very interactive project, I think so, and it's a fun project. I mean, I don't know whether you're going to be able to apply this to anything, but it's a nice project to have in your portfolio. So we're going to be using React for this project, and we're going to be fetching data from the Agify API, and then we're going to be getting that data and passing it to the screen. We're going to be displaying it on the screen. So what I've done is I've created a new React application using npx create react app, and I've called my application Agify. And then once this runs, then it's going to create a folder that is called Agify, which I have opened in VS Code by giving this command saying code Agify. And this opens up into this. This is the folder structure that we have in our default React application. So I have the public folder, which we're not going to touch, and we also have the source folder, which contains all these files. And primarily, we're going to be working in the app.js file. So you can open up this file, and then once this is open, you can open up your terminal using Ctrl and J if you're on VS Code, so that you can begin to run your local development server by saying npm run start, and this is going to open up your server on localhost 3000, which when you open up is going to open up into this default React application. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to place this to the right, and then I'm going to place my code editor to the left so that we can begin coding side by side. I'm not going to be installing Tailwind for this one, so we're going to do quite a bit of coding. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say export default function up, and then inside here I'm going to say return, and we're going to return a fragment, and inside here I'm just going to say hello world for now so that you can save it, and then this is going to reset into hello world right there. And then let's go inside our app, our index.css, and then inside here we're going to remove, actually not, let's remove everything. Yeah, let's just remove everything. And then we're going to say that for our asterisk, we want the margin to reset to 0, we want the padding to reset to 0, and they want the box sizing to be border box. And then for the body, we want to have a font size of 16 pixels so that this applies. I think this is going to apply on the buttons as well, that's why I want it here. And then I want everything to have a font family of this one. And then once we have that, let's go ahead and save it, and it should reset right there. And now we can begin to build out the default structure of our application. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to have a section which is going to be the parent for everything. And then inside this section, I'm going to have an h1 that says predict the age of a name using the Agify API. And this is going to be a link. So let me make it into a link that is going to go into https:/agify.io, and then the text is going to say Agify API, and then below this we're going to save it. First of all, let's see. Okay, we're going to have this, and then below our h1 we're going to build our form with no action. So our form is going to have an article inside, and then the article is going to have a label. The label is going to be for the name, and then we're going to say search for a name. Then below this label we're going to have an input with a type of text with a name that says name, and then with an ID that says name so that it links to this label, and then the placeholder text. So placeholder is going to say search for a name, and then we can close it out. And then below this article we're going to have a button with a type of submit so that it triggers the on submit event of the form. Now we're going to save this, and then we're going to begin to style this out so that it looks a bit better. So let's go into our CSS. And the first thing that I want to do is we have this background color, right? I want to go ahead and do that. So right away, I'm going to say that give this a background image because this is a linear gradient. And I'm going to say linear gradient, and it is about 120 degrees. And it starts from a pink color. Let me just go ahead and get that, the hexadecimal value for that. So the hexadecimal value is this one, EA3A5A. And then I want this to be 50% of the screen. And then the second color is just going to be white, and we also want this to be 50% of the screen, so that when I save this, then we should have this happening. Now the reason why this is happening is because it is applying to the content area of the body, which is currently only this first part. That is why it goes up to here and then starts repeating and repeating and repeating. So let's go ahead and remove the repeating by saying background repeat and setting it into no repeat, and you can see that that happens. And then we want to set the height of the background to 100 viewport heights. I mean, not the height of the background really, but the height of the image. And I'm just realizing that the colors should be opposite. So this first one should be white. So let's cut it out, change this into white. And then this second one should be our hex value. That now this color comes here. And then once we have that, let's add a bit of padding so that this pushes inwards. So let's go ahead and say that for the section, we want a padding of 32 pixels around. Or you know what, let me use rem values. So 32 pixels all around to rem. And then inside here, let's go and say that for the section H1, we want the font size to be 3 rem. Increase the size of the H1, that's too big. Let's say 2 rem. And then let's give it a margin on the bottom of 1 rem to push away from the form that we have. Not, let's say 2 rem, pushed away from the form that we have. And then inside the section, once again, let's go inside the form and then inside the article, because the article contains our, what's it called, our label as well as our input. And then I'm going to say display flex, and I've just realized our button is not here because I did not pass in the text. So let's say search. So the button is going to, yeah, there we go. So that is our submit button. So we want the article to display as a flex box, and then we want the flex direction to be column so that they appear one on top of the other like so. And then I'm going to say give this a gap of 2 rem to separate it out. Actually, that's too big. Let's say 1 rem. And then let's go inside the section and then inside the form, and then let's get the input. And for the input, I want to have a padding of 1 rem on the top and bottom and 2 rem on the left and right, so that we have that for the input. I want the border to be 2 pixels solid and hashtag 333, which is a dark gray. And then I want the outline to be none, so I don't want an outline when we focus on the input. And then I want to increase the font size of this input. I feel like it's a bit too small, so let's say font size, increase this to 1 rem. Okay, let me say, or maybe, yeah, 1 rem should be fine. And then on larger screens, we're going to increase it. So you know what, let me just go ahead and add a media query here and say that for a min width of 1024 pixels, meaning these styles are going to apply when the device width is about a laptop size and above. So I'm going to say that for the section form input, we want the font size to be 1.5 rem, so that if I increase this up to about 1024 pixels, you can see that the font size increases. And then let's go ahead and style the label. So let's go above this and say that for the section, for the form, for the label, we want the font size to be 1 rem. And then we want the text transform to be uppercase. So uppercase. And we want to change the color for this to hashtag 111827. Move this upwards. And then we want to make the font weight bold. And we are going to have that. I feel 1 rem is a bit too big, so let's say 0.9 rem. Let's use 0.9 rem. And then let's go ahead and continue styling this input. So let's give this input a border radius of 0.65 rem all around, which is about 10 pixels. And then now let's go into the form, because remember how we structured it? The form has the article and then the button, so that we can display flex on the form. So let's go here. For the section form, let's say display flex, which is going to bring the button here. And then I'm going to say flex direction, change this into column. It's going to do that. And then let's give it a gap of 2 rem. I think, okay, 2 rem is too much. Let's say 1 rem all around. And then now let's go ahead and style out the button. So we're going to say that for the section form and then the button, we want the padding to be 1 rem and 2 rem all around, just like on the input. We want the font size to be 1 rem once again. We want the border. Actually, how did I style this? Oh, it's okay. So we want the, let's see, we want the border, we don't want a border, we want the border radius to be 0.625 rem. We want the background color to be hashtag 333, and then we want the text color to be white. And then let's move this here and save it. Let's see what you have. Okay, now we can remove this border because it has a border by default. So I'm going to say border none. And then, okay, you know what, this font size is a bit too small, so let me give this a font size of 1.25 rem, and here on the bottom 1.25 rem as well. Make it a bit bigger. Yeah, I think that is much better. That is much better. Now let's give this button a cursor pointer. So cursor pointer, and then let's select the hover state of the button. So let's copy this, paste it here, and say that on hover we want the background color to be hashtag 222, and then let's give this a transition. So transition the background color by 0.2 seconds, and then ease in out, so that now we're going to have a slight transition on the button. There we go. And then I've just realized that I'm using a different font here. I'm using a different font, so let me change it to the font that I used, which I think was Trebuchet. Let's save it. Yeah, I think that's the correct one. That is the correct one. Or is it? It's not even the correct one. And so actually, you know what, the correct font is called Lucida. That is the correct font. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now once we have that, then the next thing that we're going to do is this. We're going to go back into our app.js, and then we're going to begin the process to get our data. And the way we do that in React is we need to import use state hook and use effect. You know what, we're not going to need use effect actually, and this is coming from React. And then we're going to say we're going to set up our state values. So we want a name state value and set name function to control the state value. This is going to be called to use state. By default is going to be an empty string, and this is what is going to be linking to our input here. And then we're going to have another one that is called names and set names, and this is going to be populated when we fetch our data. So by default it's just going to be empty. And then we're going to create a submit function of the form, so that when you submit the form or when you click the submit button, then it's going to trigger the get request to the API and then display the data that we get back. So I'm going to say const handle submit is equal to, and we're going to get the synthetic event of e, where we're going to say e.prevent default, which is going to prevent the default behavior of the form triggering a reload of the page when it is submitted. And you know what, once we have this, let's just go ahead and add the on submit on the form. So here a mouse, so on submit, and we're going to say and submit. And then on the button, I'm also going to add an on click on the button and make this equal to handle submit as well, so that when you click on the button or when you press enter, then the form is also going to submit. And then below this, we're going to create our fetch function. So I'm going to say const fetch name, or let me call it get name, and this is going to be equal to an asynchronous function. And then we're going to say const response, meaning the response that we get back is going to await the fetch towards the API, and the API is, I've forgotten it, where is it? This is the API, so let's copy this link, copy, and then let's paste it here. And then by default, well, currently it's still searching for the name called Michael, and that's okay. We're going to change it up in a moment. And then we're going to say that the data that we get back, const data, is equal to await response.json. And then once we get back the data, then we want to populate our set name. So this second one, we want to populate it with the data that we get back. And then once this happens, then we want to go ahead and call our function. So below this, let's just say get name, like so. And then hopefully this is going to work. So let's go ahead and save it. And you know what, we can try to console log just so that we see whether this is working. So console log the data. And if this works, we should be getting back the data for the name called Michael only. So save it. And then let's go ahead and open up F12. So inspect and inside the console. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's just try to submit the form. And see that when we submit the form, then we get back the data for Michael. Okay, now let's go ahead and do this. What we need to do is we need to change this into a dynamic value, meaning our name here. So we're going to grab this, and then we are going to say, place in our $sign and then our curly brackets, and then set this into name, and then change this to backticks, and then change this to backticks so that we can add in our variable here. Now, what this will do is that it is going to be checking for our state value, and it is going to be getting the data based on what we have inside the state value. Now, our state value needs to be linked with the input so that this actually works. So how we do that is by saying set the value of the input equal to the name state value that we have. And then when we change the value of the input, so the onChange handler, we're going to pass in an inline function here, and we're going to target the synthetic event of E, and then we're going to say set name into e.target.value, meaning set the name, and the name is here, meaning populate this one with whatever is typed in. So I'm going to save this, and now look at this. What's this? Let's reload. Okay, there we go. Now let's go ahead and search for my name, and you can see that when you search for my name, then we get the correct data. When you search for Michael, we're also going to get the correct data because now we're getting for Michael. And when we search for what, Tony, we're also going to be getting the correct data. Okay, now all you need to do is just display it on the screen here for the user, because the users are not going to be opening up the console. So first thing that we need to do is we need to go here and remove this console log, and then let me place this to be full screen. And then below the form, so below the form, I'm going to create a div, and then inside this div, I'm going to be saying the following. I'm going to create a UL, and this UL is going to have 3 list items. Now the first list item is going to say, what did I say here? You searched for, and then the name. So you searched for, and then inside here we're going to be passing in the name. Now you can pass in this name that you have here, or you can go inside your API, and inside the request that you get back, you can get this name and then display it on the screen. And the way we do that is because this is now populated, right? So we can go ahead and say names.name. And then inside this second one, what did I say for this one? I said they are likely. So they are likely. And then inside here, we're going to be getting the names.age here. So names.age, and then we're going to say years old. And then below this, we're going to say, what did I say? The name that, so the name, and then we pass in our name once again. So names.name has been searched for, and then we're going to say names.count times. Is that correct? Let me see. Names.count. There we go. Now let me go ahead and save this, and for now it's not going to break because we're going to have this, but when I reload it, then our application breaks. The reason why it breaks is because it evaluates this before the onSubmit can run, right? Now in order to prevent that, then we go ahead and grab this div, and then we're going to press a conditional here, and we're going to say that when name, only when name exists, so when name is true, that's when we want to pass in the div. And if it is false, I want to pass in this label. So pass in this label and place it here, and then save it. And now see what happens on the screen. Now if I reload it, then our application doesn't break because the condition here is waiting for the name to be fulfilled, which can then be executed. So if I search for Tony, once again, look at this, now we have an issue. And you know what, actually the issue is we are passing the wrong state value. This should be names. So we are saying that only when this is filled, and we know that this is filled when the submit function has run. So save it once again, and then Now we can pass in Tony, and we can see that now it returns the correct data. All you need to do is now just tell this to look better, and the way we do that is just by going inside our CSS. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to limit all this so that it doesn't go to the end. So I'm going to go inside the section, and I'm going to give it a max width of 900 pixels, and then a margin of auto to center everything. There we go. And then we're going to go to the bottom of this. So we're going to say that for this section UL, I want the list style type to be none, so that it removes the bulleted lists. And then I'm going to say display flex, and flex direction, change this into column, and nothing's going to change. And then we can give it a gap of 1 rem to separate everything out. And then we're going to give it a margin top of 2 rem to push away from this button. And then we want to get the first item inside the UL. So I'm going to say that for the UL, for the list item, and I want to get the first child, meaning only this first item. And then I want to say text transform and set this to uppercase, which is going to make, so not uppercase, but capitalize. So it's going to capitalize this, and then we're going to change this into a color of hashtag 111H27. And then we're going to say font weight, change it to bold, and font size, change it into 2 rem, and we're going to have that. And then this can remain and this can remain as it is, though we can fix this to be a bit better looking. So we can go inside our app.js, and where we are rendering the count, we can also say to local string, which is going to add a comma or a full stop depending on your region, so that you can easily read these numbers. And yeah, would you look at that? That is a nice little project that we have inside here. All we need to do now is just commit this to GitHub. So let me go ahead and open up my GitHub, and then we can close this down. We can close that, and we can also close this. And then now let's open up our terminal. Let's shut it down, make sure that we don't have any errors. No errors. Okay, let's shut it down, and then let's create a new repository, and then new repository, and then I'm going to say Agify-YT, and then create repository. So I'm going to copy this link, and then I'm going to say git add, no, let me say cd into my source folder, and then git add app.js and git commit, and I'm going to say main component, and then git add index.css, and I'm going to say git commit, and I'm going to say style component, and then git remote add origin, and then paste in our link, and then git push -u origin main, which is going to push everything to our remote repository. So once this pushes, then we should be able to see our repository here. So let's just give it a moment, and it is almost done. There we go. And then when I reload it, you can see that we have our application right there. So if you want to take a look at the code, then this is the link. It is also going to be in the description. And so that is going to be the end of the video. And if you enjoyed it, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.